stop. Take a breath. Forget perfection right now. Look, we've been trained to chase perfection, to measure every move, polish every flaw, hide every mistake. And for a while, some of us can keep up. We hustle, we grind, we push ourselves, and maybe, every now and then, we land on something that looks close to perfect. But here's the secret nobody tells you. You can't hold on to it. It's not sustainable. And trying to will leave you tired, burned out, and wondering why nothing ever feels good enough. But what if I told you the magic isn't in perfection at all? What if the real gift, the space, that real space you've been searching for, is somewhere between good and great? Now, let's be clear. That space isn't always clean. Sometimes it's messy and awkward or full of trial and error. And sometimes it's the place where you swing and you miss, where you stumble, where you fall short. But here's the other side of that. It's also the space with room to breathe. And it's the runway that lets you take risks without fear. It's where you can hit a single and celebrate, or knock it out of the park and celebrate, without the pressure that you always have to hit home runs. Between good and great is the most human place to be. It's where growth happens without breaking you. It's where creativity and consistency find balance. It's where you get to exhale, be real, and still move forward. And here's the biggest lie we've ever been told: that perfection should be the goal. Are you ready to level up? I am. I'm Jonah. I'm your person. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the show. I want to take a moment to welcome new listeners and subscribers, and a great big welcome to those who keep coming back for more. Somewhere along the way, most of us got sold a lie that the only way to matter, to succeed, or to belong is to be perfect. Perfect grades, perfect body, perfect results, perfect performance at work, perfect kids, perfect everything. But here's the problem. Perfection doesn't exist, and chasing it is exhausting. What does exist is the space between good and great. And that space is not failure, not settling, not second best. It's actually the most human, most sustainable, most freeing place you could ever choose to live. And here's why. Good to great gives you room. Room to make mistakes without breaking yourself over them. Room to celebrate hitting and getting to first base instead of obsessing over hitting a home run every single time. Room to exhale, knowing you don't have to replicate yesterday's best moments over and over just to prove you're worthy. Is it sometimes awkward? Sure. Is it sometimes messy? Absolutely. But that's not the whole picture. Most of the time, this space is where we thrive naturally, where we discover rhythms, find joy in the process, and build lives and careers that don't collapse under the weight of impossible expectations. And here's the kicker. If you get close to perfect once, trying to hold on to that over and over again is not sustainable. It will burn you out. It will stress you out. And if you're a parent, a teacher, or a leader demanding perfection from others, it will push them toward burnout too. Sometimes to the point of quitting, breaking down, or just giving up. So what if instead you gave yourself and others permission to live between good and great? What if that became the standard? So here's a recap for you. Once again, perfection is not sustainable. The real gift is permission to live between good and great, where growth, joy, and breathing room exists. All right, let's talk about what I call the runway. Think of the space between good and great like a runway. It's where you have room to gather speed, to make adjustments, to rise when the timing is right. No one expects a plane to lift off the second the engines start. It takes space. It takes distance. It takes trust. Life works the same way. In this space, you don't have to launch perfectly every time. Sometimes you stumble. Sometimes you glide. And sometimes you take off and surprise even yourself. And all of that counts. And that's the beauty of the runway. You're still moving forward, still building momentum, and still in the game. When we chase perfection, though, we rob ourselves of that space. We demand instant liftoff. We punish ourselves for every wobble. And pretty soon, instead of flying, we're stuck on the ground, exhausted from trying too hard, too fast. But when you give yourself permission to operate between good and great, you realize every effort matters. Getting the first base matters. Learning from your strikeout matters. And hitting that home run matters. It's not about forcing perfection. It's about celebrating progress, building consistency, and allowing yourself the freedom to keep going without breaking. This is the kind of shift that lowers stress and restores joy. It's what makes your shoulders relax, your breath come easier, your mind open wider. Because suddenly, you're not playing a game you can't win. You're playing a game you can actually enjoy. So, for our short recap, the runway between good and great gives you space to grow, celebrate progress, and keep flying without burning out. All right, let's talk about the myth of flawless. We live in a culture obsessed with flawless. The perfect post, the perfect pitch, the perfect performance. And everywhere you turn, someone's polishing the edges, or editing the mistakes, or cutting out the awkward pauses. And it creates the illusion that life can be mastered. That is, if you just try hard enough, you can finally get it perfect. But here's the truth. Flawless isn't real. And even if it were, it wouldn't connect. Nobody feels moved by perfection. They feel moved by presence, by honesty, by someone showing up as they are, not as some impossible version of themselves. Think about it. The most inspiring people in your life, did they impact you because they never messed up? Or because they kept going even when they did? Or was it because they hit home runs every single time? Or because they weren't afraid to celebrate getting the first base, to learn from strikeouts, or to swing again no matter what? The myth of flawless keeps us locked up in fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of being seen. Fear of not being enough. But when you step out of that trap and choose to live between good and great, something shifts. You realize connection doesn't come from looking perfect. It comes from being real. And people lean in when they recognize themselves in you. They see the courage, not the polish. And the freedom that comes with that, it's unmatched. Suddenly, you're not afraid to try. You're not terrified of mistakes. You're not carrying the weight of impossible expectations. You're just living, free, creative, human. And here's a recap for you. Once again, flawless is a myth. Real connection and freedom are born in authenticity, when you stop chasing perfect and start showing up real. Look, I know there will be people out there that won't believe what I'm saying, in part because they're so entrenched in their perfectionism. They're blind to the broader concept of perfect. I had a short debate with someone recently who called themselves a perfectionist. I asked a few simple questions to get them to realize that perfection is a lie, a myth, it's not sustainable, and it's a trap. I asked, if you cook meals at home, are your meals always perfect? Perfect spices, perfect temperature when it's served, polished silverware, and everything that goes along with a meal? And they said, no. I continued. Knowing that they have children, I asked, do your kids have straight A's? And once again, they said no. And I asked, why not? And they seemed puzzled. And they stuttered into their answer to say, because they don't study how they should. And I replied, okay, then why don't you help them or persuade them to get straight A's? Once again, they were puzzled. I then asked, when you drive your car to work, do you ever have problems with how you drive, or better yet, how you defensively drive? And they said, well, someone cuts me off almost every time when I'm on my way to work. And I asked, how do you react? And they said, I get nervous. I might even get anxious. And I might honk. I might speed up and give them a glare when I'm driving by them. And I stated in all three questions, there were imperfections. And yet, you call yourself a perfectionist. And once again, they looked confused. And I stated, if you're a perfectionist, there should be perfection in everything you do, not just in some parts of you, but all of who you are. And they replied, well, that's not possible. And I said, my point exactly. So why are you trying to be perfect in some parts of your life and getting stressed out and falling into the trap? And they couldn't really respond. And here's why. Once again, because perfection is a lie and it's a trap. Friends, stop trying to be perfect. You're not. You never will be. And if you keep trying, you're depriving yourself of true and real happiness, or more of it. And you may be doing the same thing to the environments that you live in, or you work in, or you play in. So let's call it out again. Perfection is a lie. It's a trap that keeps running faster and harder, chasing something you will never actually catch. And yet, it's the lie we've been taught to believe in school, at work, at home. I once had a mini argument with a supervisor who insisted that perfection does exist. And I said, well, with all due respect, I totally disagree. Because what I hear you saying is that you're willing to risk me burning out to meet an unattainable concept of perfection. I can promise you great, but it is impossible to promise you perfection. And I will not do that to myself. And I find it inappropriate and unfair that you would expect that from me. And no, I didn't get in trouble and I didn't get terminated. And here's the thing. I stand by that. Because expecting perfection isn't noble. It's cruel. It asks people to sacrifice their health, their creativity, their relationships, and sometimes even their sanity in service of something that isn't real. You want to know why so many talented people burn out? Why employees quit? Why kids shut down under pressure? It's because someone decided perfection was the standard. But here's the truth. Yes, there are moments where things look perfect. A performance that lands just right. A project that feels flawless. A moment where everything clicks. But that's not perfection. That's alignment. And you can't force alignment to happen every single time. Trying to replicate it over and over will destroy you. Good to great is where we find sustainability. It's where people can show up consistently, grow over time, and give their best without collapsing under pressure. Leaders, parents, and bosses, hear this. If you demand perfection from your people, you will lose them. If you call out the good to great zone as weakness, you will crush the very potential you're trying to nurture. So remember this. Perfection is a lie. Good to great is the truth. The place where humans can thrive without breaking. All right, we're going to talk about leadership and how good to great fits within that realm. If you're a leader, a manager, a parent, or anyone responsible for people, you need to hear this. The way you frame expectations doesn't just impact results. It impacts human beings. And when you demand perfection, you're not raising the bar. You're raising the pressure. You're building a culture where mistakes aren't lessons, they're punishments. Where not flawless means like failure. And over time, that doesn't create excellence. It creates burnout. It creates turnover. It creates anxiety. And guess what? People stop showing up with energy and creativity because they're terrified of being judged for anything less than perfect. Now think about the opposite. Imagine creating a culture that values the space between good and great, where consistency matters more than polish, where small wins are celebrated, and mistakes are seen as fuel for growth. That kind of environment doesn't lower standards. It raises sustainability. It builds teams, families, and communities that last. And here's the truth. You'll get better performance from people who feel safe to try, safe to learn, safe to celebrate progress along the way. That's where innovation is born. That's where loyalty grows. And that's where people actually want to bring their best, not because they're scared, but because they're inspired. And I've met so many people who will not budge away from this concept of perfectionism. And there's usually ego involved, overconfidence. They're usually mean people. They usually have a lot of turnover and maybe even complaints. Here's the truth. You'll get better performance from people who feel safe to try, safe to learn, safe to celebrate progress along the way. That's where innovation is born. That's where loyalty grows. And that's where people actually want to bring their best. Not because they're scared, but because they're inspired. Leaders, hear me on this. Demanding perfection might get you short-term compliance, but valuing the good to great zone gets you long-term greatness. And the question is, do you want your people to survive you or thrive with you? Remember this. Perfection-driven leadership burns people out. Good to great leadership builds people up and makes them want to stay and grow and give their best. It's now time to set yourself free. So let's imagine it. What happens when you stop chasing perfection and start living between good and great? First, your stress begins to unclench. You realize you don't have to nail it every single time. You can deliver something solid, meaningful, impactful, and it's still enough. And that sigh of relief you feel, that's your body remembering it doesn't have to run at red line 24/7. Second, you get your creativity back. Because the truth is, Perfection kills creativity. It strangles experimentation. It makes you second guess your every move, your every word, your every idea before it even leaves your brain. But when you allow yourself to play in the good to great zone, ideas flow. Risks feel lighter. And you're not obsessing over the outcome. You're exploring the process. Third, you start to connect more deeply with yourself, with others, because people don't relate to your perfect mask. They relate to your realness. When you live in that honest middle ground, people trust you more. They open up. They feel safe to bring their authentic selves as well. And maybe the biggest gift, you build resilience. You're no longer crushed when something doesn't land perfectly. You see it as part of the process. You celebrate the base hits as much as the home runs, because both move you and both move you forward. You stop living in fear of not enough and start living in gratitude for what is. This isn't lowering your standards. It's raising your quality of life. It's choosing sustainability over burnout. It's living with joy instead of constant pressure. And who the heck would not want that? So let's recap. Life between good and great feels lighter, freer, more creative, and deeply human. It's where resilience grows and connection thrives. All right. Close your eyes for a second and picture it. A life where you don't have to chase perfection. A life where your worth isn't measured by flawless execution or impossible standards. You're still ambitious. You still strive. And you still want to grow. But now it's sustainable. It's human. And it's joyful. In this life, your mistakes are markers, not failures. Your wins, big or small, are celebrated without guilt or pressure to immediately replicate them. You can hit a first base today and feel the satisfaction. Knock it out of the park tomorrow and savor that too. Because each moment is recognized for what it is: a step forward, a chance to learn, a chance to show up as your full self. Imagine walking into your work, your relationships, your personal life with less tension, less fear, less judgment, both for yourself and others. Imagine the energy you save, the creativity you unlock, the trust you build when you lead from this space instead of demanding perfection. Imagine being the kind of person who inspires others not through fear, but through presence and courage and consistency. The beauty of this path is that it's accessible to everyone. You don't need a perfect strategy, a perfect team, or a perfect plan. You just need the courage to choose the runway, step into the space between good and great, and trust that progress, not perfection. That's where true life happens. This is more than advice. It's permission. Permission to breathe, permission to grow, permission to show up fully without fear, for goodness sakes. Permission to lead, create, love, and innovate in a way that lasts. Hear this very, very loud, very clear, very crystal clear. You deserve this, and you owe it to yourself to have this. Heck, you owe it to your family if you stress them the freak out. If you're always on edge because people are walking eggshells around you because you demand to be a perfectionist. That's ridiculous. You deserve to be happy. And if you see this and you still go down that road of perfectionism, what the heck are you doing? Why are you even listening to this episode? We're here to level up, not stay steady, not stay stagnant, and not take 10 steps back. If you're listening to this show right now, I dare you. I challenge you. You have more power than you think. And man, oh man, I would love to hear from anybody that takes on this challenge and they see the difference between good and great and perfectionism and how healthy and happier they are today. The life you step into between good and great is lighter, freer, and more fulfilling. It's sustainable growth, celebrated wins, and authentic connections, all without chasing the impossible. You've got this. I dare you. So here's your challenge for this show and for this week. Today, pick one area of your life or work where you've been chasing perfection. And instead of striving for flawless, commit to stepping into good to great. Celebrate your progress. It doesn't matter if they're baby steps or leaps and bounds. Celebrate, for goodness sakes. You owe it to yourself and those around you. Embrace your learning and notice how your energy, creativity, and confidence shift. Whether it's a project, a conversation, or a personal goal, let yourself act, grow, and succeed without demanding perfection. You've got this. So as we wrap up the show, here's your invitation. Once again, stop chasing a lie. Stop carrying the weight of impossible standards. Step into the space between good and great. Feel the runway. Take your swing and celebrate each step forward, whether it's to first base or for a home run or a grand slam. You don't owe perfection. You owe presence, courage, and authenticity. And when you live there, everything changes. Your creativity, your relationships, your leadership style, your joy. For those struggling with being perfectionists and realizing that you're missing out on a greater, stronger, and more fulfilled life, what are you going to do about it? Will you crumble under pressure and keep going down this unhealthy and unsustainable road with all its unnecessary attributes? Or will you say, challenge accepted. I want this. I've got this. I will make this happen. Today is the day to commit. Remember, your future self has already gone through all of this. Tap into those learns, the strength, the resilience, the perseverance, and the confidence. You can do this. You've got this. And for whatever it's worth, I believe in you. Until next time, thanks for continuing to be on this journey with me. Thanks for hanging out today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming back. And have a great week.